Today we got my PS4 Pro, and this console is now 6 years old. I bought it almost brand new, so we are going to open it up, clean it, change the thermal paste. So it will be the first time that I'll be opening one of these in this specific console, so I will probably do some mistakes on the way, but let's do a little tuto and see what happens. So we start by removing the hard drive cover. This hard drive, it's a little difficult to remove, but we just need to do a hard pull on it until it releases. So we have now access to the screw that holds the hard drive on place. So we now remove the hard drive and its little tray. And this is a 1 GB hard drive, as it is in all the Pros. And then we start then to remove the warranty stickers and the screws beneath them, which are Torx screws T8. And there goes the warranty. So the bottom cover does not want to get loose because I left the screw in it, so I'm literally blind. So we then need to remove 3 screws and not 2 screws from the back. To remove the cover, we just pull after we remove the 3 screws and it will get loose. And this is the bottom cover. It does have a little bit of dust, nothing special. And we see now the interior of the console. We turn the console around to remove the top cover. Around the fan area, nothing special again. And the cooler itself, a bit dusty. We then remove the Torx 8 screws from the PSU unit. We remove the anti-static board. We turn the console around again and remove all the Torx screws, which are the silver ones that are screwed in plastic. The Phillips screws are black and are screwed on the metal, so you don't mix them up when you are assembling it back. We now remove all the Phillips screws, which are the little black screws. We now remove the bottom cover for the motherboard, revealing the motherboard itself and the processor area. The board, it's not dusty at all. We turn the console around to remove the power supply. So we now push the PSU unit up until it releases, after we remove the screws from the bottom. And to remove the connector, make sure to pull the connector of the PSU and not the one on the console, because these break very easily. The power supply looks clean, so good to go. We now remove the processor shield. Here we have Phillips screws because they are on metal. To remove the protection shield, we just put our fingernail and lift it up, and it will release immediately. We now go to the processor clamp to remove the 4 Phillips screws. We now, after removing the clamp, start removing all the cables around the console. We just pull them out. And on this specific one, we need to take the little flap and pull it out. So we now reveal the processor, which is the APU actually, and the thermal paste is not that bad, but it also needs to be changed because it's starting to get hard. As you can see, it's starting to get stiff, so let's take care of cleaning this. So let's then remove now the support of the motherboard, which have 2 screws and another 2 screws to remove the shield. So when assembling back, make sure to put the little screws on the support of the processor and the bigger screws on the chassis of the console. The bigger screws go on this area and the little screws go on the support on top. The heatsink is not dirty at all, just has a few little bits of dust. We now remove the cooler, removing 2 Phillips screws. So it does have a bit of dust, nothing special. We will then clean it with a toothbrush and cotton swab in alcohol. We start now to clean with the toothbrush, and followed by then so on this area I will just pass a cotton with isopropyl alcohol. This time I'm not gonna remove the Blu-ray because it's not dirty to justify that work. If you want to see the opening of a Blu-ray, you can check my previous video on the PS4 Slim because they are quite similar. After this, we now pass a wet towel, which is used to clean car dashboards. As they are plastic and the consoles are plastic, it is very good to clean, and it will leave a nice smell and a shiny plastic. We start to assemble back, so we put the fan on. Let's just pass our toothbrush on the heatsink to remove the remains of dust that it had, avoiding then more dust to be clogged in. To remove the thermal paste on the heatsink, we just pass a cotton with alcohol on the direction of the scratches, so we don't scratch it. And then we pass the toothbrush throughout the motherboard just to make sure that no dust is on the board. To clean the processor from the thermal paste, we use a cotton swab to remove the thermal paste. To remove the remains of it from the caps, we just passed a toothbrush and a cotton swab to dry it out. Perfectly clean and shiny our APU. So let's just remove the battery to see what's the voltage on it. Well, my multimeter normally is a little screwed up. I'm not sure why, but it's showing 6 volts on a 3 volt battery. Sometimes it happens, things from China. Let's see now. So yeah, around 3.2, so which is okay to leave this battery for a little longer. So we clean now the bottom cover with the wet towel as well. It's not necessary to bathe it in soapy water because it's not that dirty and the towel does the appropriate job. If you have one that is very dirty, obviously clean it with water and soap. Same thing applies for the top cover. And we assemble it back together on the chassis of the console, the base of the motherboard. Now one of the most important parts, which is applying the thermal paste on the APU. As someone says, the perfect amount. Not sure if it is or not, but I like to spread it around with the spatula that's included on the thermal paste, so I'm sure that it gets all the parts of the processor. I have now placed the motherboard. We place now the clamp for the processor. And I just realized I forgot to put the support, so I need to remove this again. Mistakes happen. So the thermal paste is already spreaded, but it looks okay. So once we clamp it, it will be fine. So let's leave it as is, so we don't waste thermal paste, and put the support for the processor again on place. I also had forgotten the chassis, that the screws for the chassis that hold this board in place. We now screw the two little screws on the support. Now we finally place the board in place and put all the cables back in. And we put the clamp in place once again. when we put these screws in, I like to screw them in faces, so on top, then the opposite end, on bottom, then the opposite end, and do this throughout the screwing until they are tight. Doing this, we make sure that the thermal paste is well spreaded on the APU, and once the console is on, the heat is spreaded throughout the processor, avoiding in that way that the part of the processor is cooler than the other. Now put the shields on top of it again, making sure that all the thermal pads are in place as well. We now connect all the cables on the motherboard. As we had already placed the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi cables on, we screwed up because they are supposed to go over this metal shield and not on the bottom as they are now. Mistakes happen, they are corrected. We now continue to screw all the Phillips screws on their specific holes. Before we start screwing everything in, we put the power supply in place, because one of the bottom screws holds it as well. So make sure to put this before you screw everything back in place. Can place all the PSU screws on. And now, yes, we place all the screws in place. We start with the little Phillips screws and go down to the Torx screws. And now the Torx screws, which go on the bigger holes, and so we now slide the bottom cover in and push it back downwards so that it fits gently on the console, just like so. And we put the top cover, we slide it in as well from the back and push it in for it to fit. We now put the Torx screws for the warranty back in place, which are 2 for the warranty and an extra one to hold the plate. If you like to have it as an original, you can put the seals back in place. We place the hard drive. And fixate with the screw. And we put the hard drive cover back on. This you just need to push it and it will go in. And there it is, as clean as possible. And we're now going to test it and see if it still works. And it is working, obviously, so let's go into the menu and make sure that the game There it is, Horizon Zero Dawn. I love this game, it's really nice. So guys, if you liked it, please leave it a thumbs up and subscribe the channel. We'll see you on the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.